Hey there, I'm Mr. Terry, high school history teacher and gamer, and welcome to another History Teacher Acts video. Now, I thought we'd combine history and gaming into this video that was recommended to me. It's called Every Historical Inaccuracy in Call of Duty World at War. Now, World at War is one of my favorite games, especially World War II games. And I wanted to see what the inaccuracies are according to this channel called the Frosty one, and I wanted to give you my thoughts on it, and hopefully get a chance to talk about what I think about the role of accuracy in historical video games. You might be surprised about what I have to say. All right, this original video link is going to be down below. Check that out. By the way, if you've been missing it, make sure you're watching History Showdown. That's my history trivia game show, where I put your favorite history YouTubers against each other in a trivia contest, and the tournament is really heated up. I'll link that playlist down below. All right, let's get started.
The entirety of this level is complete fiction. This is just ridiculous. None of these dates make sense. They would never do this in real life. Did they even think before adding this? Listing every historical inaccuracy in Call of Duty World at War.
Right.
There's a surprising amount to them, so prepare yourself and let's do this.
I am hoping it's not too, actually. You're going to hear my thoughts along the way.
The game starts by showing us this map of Axis-controlled territories in Europe.
Okay.
However, it places all of the Axis countries under just Germany, and also shows Germany having occupied parts of Switzerland, Spain, and Turkey, despite all of these countries never being invaded as they are neutral during World War II.
Okay, so we are getting part of that. Okay, let's be honest. Okay, I guess we want more respect for the Italians here, but who's really pulling the weight? Okay, so a little bit of map inaccuracies. Fair.
Following this, we see the Japanese-controlled territories, which on this map shows Japan controlling all of Sakhalin Island, despite the fact that during this period, Japan only controlled the south half of this island, with the Soviets controlling the north. Don't get me wrong, I love these cutscenes and how they use actual historical footage, but we will come to notice that they keep getting things incorrect, such as here where the game shows footage of the Nanjing Massacre with the caption of Indochina 1937. However, this massacre occurred in Nanjing, mainland China, not Indochina.
That's true, because yeah, that's talking about a region much further south. Now, though this stuff was it happened so quick in the game, you probably would not know, or even anybody trying to, I guess, want to know about the history would even catch. But yeah, region names, they're important.
And it could be argued that perhaps the caption has no relation to the footage shown and is instead referring to the Japanese invasion of the Indochina region. However, this would still not make sense, as French Indochina was not invaded by Japan until 1940.
Right.
Here we see what appears to be...
Yeah, well, what was the original date they were saying there? But yeah, French Indochina, it's basically like Vietnam.
Japanese A6M0 fighters dropping bombs on Pearl Harbor. However, it was the Nakajima B5Ms that performed the bombing runs at Pearl Harbor, with the Zero fighters solely performing air control and strafing. This cutscene shows that our character, Private Miller, is in the 34th Infantry Division of the US Army, but then immediately after this we are put in a mission where we are in the 2nd Marine Raider Battalion.
Maybe he was in both. Now, that also wasn't a real person, so... I don't know if that matters.
Little more than sand, trees, and a small Japanese military.
I need to play this game again.
There were 2 submarines involved in the Makan Island.
Why have we not got a remastered version yet?
Which we see depicted here, and the USS Argonaut, which we do not see depicted. The game states that the USS Nautilus was 1,113 meters long.
Yikes.
Yeah, over a kilometer. This is of...
that's probably just a typo, right?
Of course, a typo, as the actual Nautilus was 113 meters long.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. I mean, you'd hope this stuff would get proofread, but yeah, can you imagine 1,000 meters sub? Dude, that thing would be crazy. How big is the one that Captain Nemo had? The Nautilus, the real one. That thing was the size of a cruise ship, right?
But still, they really should not be getting such small things like this wrong. The Japanese camp on Makan Island was located on the southwestern area of the island. However, the game here shows it located in the northwest.
Miller's reconnaissance team landed there almost a week ago.
So a lot of it is going with the visual stuff. The mapping and that. And I guess that is fair. That is fair.
There was no reconnaissance team sent into Makan Island, as the raid on the island was planned to be a surprise attack, so sending a reconnaissance team in would only jeopardize this element of surprise.
Okay.
Also, even if a reconnaissance team was sent, sending them in an entire week before the attack would be very excessive. The Hamlet is a highly...
Yeah, okay. They want that because it's fun. Reconnaissance missions are fun.
The effective piece of protective gear used by soldiers, and is the first thing Sergeant Sullivan gives us after rescuing us, thus highlighting its importance. However, him and everybody else in his squad are not wearing helmets themselves for some reason.
There was only one, okay? They couldn't carry it. I think what they want to do is really try to, in this is get the characters, because this is opening mission. They want you to get familiar with those characters and what they look like, try to create connections with that. I would think that would be more of the choice for them doing it here. But yeah, you definitely want one of these.
Instead, some of the Marines are wearing 1944 USMC utility caps, which, as the name would suggest, was not introduced until 1944. Also, the camouflage uniforms the Marines wear in this mission were not introduced until 1943.
I gotta say, they went to a lot of work and analysis to try to find all this stuff with, again, the specific clothing. I wonder if they knew that stuff going, beforehand, or really trying to just like almost frame by frame get this stuff down.
Roebuck has the insignia of a sergeant on his uniform, with the rank of corporal on his name tag. The Type 100 SMG did not enter service until late 1942, and the Pacific one we see in-game is a model of the weapon not produced until 1944.
Now, this is the stuff I would think that military junkies, especially World War II ones, and there's so many of you on the internet, that's the stuff that you would immediately pick up on, because it is like so important, so people are into that so much.
The Thompson SMG seen in the game is the M1A1 Thompson, which was not standardized by the US military until October 1942.
Anachronisms.
The real Makin Island raid was much larger than portrayed in the game, with it involving over 200 Marines and lasting 2 days, whereas this mission is over in a matter of minutes.
That's something I will always excuse, though. I mean, you can't put that stuff to scale. It's just not really possible. I mean, that would be cool to have things on those massive scales. That's why sometimes, I mean, it's like with multiplayer that can be fun with like Battlefield, where you have just like dozens of people all fighting. And of course, that doesn't actually capture that. I mean, we've all done like Normandy D-Day ones, and obviously it's a small thing, but like, I think you can still capture the essence of it in scaled down things. Same with movies, with battle scenes. You don't have to show the whole thing, but you can get the feel of it by scaling it down, but still keeping that intensity. And that's hard to do given limitations.
Also, many key details from this battle are missing. The high prevalence of Japanese snipers, the eventual air attacks, and the Marines' chaotic extraction from the island caused by the harsh weather and both motors failing
it's a recon mission.
Nowhere to be seen.
Well, again, it's a recon mission, so that's what they're trying for, right? All right, Midway.
We see what is supposed to be battleships during the Battle of Midway. Right. However, this carrier is a modern-day nuclear-powered Nimitz-class aircraft carrier, which did not exist during World War II.
I mean, that's barely in it, and it's even like... like photography negatives there, but yeah, somebody just copied and pasted that into there. The graphics budget, like they went all in on like how cool it looks, but yeah, you're seeing a bunch of inaccuracies there. That is kind of funny because you're so distracted about how cool those scenes are that you wouldn't notice that unless you have just an incredibly insane eye for some of these details and the anachronisms. An anachronism, if you didn't know, is when something is placed like in a story or something and it's not in its correct time. You know what I mean? Like putting guns in the Roman Empire. It's an anachronism.
And these two vessels are Ticonderoga-class guided missile cruisers, which did not enter service until 1978.
At least they're like blurry and dark.
We're heading up an all-out assault on Peleliu Island, alongside familiar faces, fresh-faced recruits. The older guys like Miller, Sergeant Sullivan, and myself. We're known as the old breed.
Yeah. Exactly, because years of active combat tend to give experience and promotions, yet our characters still somehow all have the same rank that they had 2 years prior during the Makin Island raid.
Well, you see, in this one, nobody's dying. I mean, people are raising rank also because they're replacing people that are dying. Nobody dies in these. You're an NPC, you're invulnerable.
US LVT landing craft should have 30 caliber and 50 caliber machine guns attached to them.
Navy's been bombing the hell out of the island for 2 days straight.
What do you mean? They wanted to go in like this without any coverage. Now they also had coverage behind them in this these type of amphibious invasions, but yeah.
The bombardment before the attack on Peleliu Island lasted 3 days.
that tree line ASAP.
The acronymization of as soon as possible to ASAP was created and popularized by the US Army in 1955. Here we call in a rocket barrage from the LCI or ships, which precisely destroys the enemy defenses on the beach. Later on, we use the same rocket strikes to destroy Japanese tanks further inland with pinpoint accuracy. However, these rocket launchers attached to the LCI ships were renowned for being inaccurate, as they were fixed in position, meaning that they could only be aimed by moving the entire ship.
Now, okay, Call of Duty, we gotta understand, it's the Hollywood version of video games. You know what I mean? They're gonna take liberties to make it fun and action packed. My whole thing with like war video games is accurate war video games are not going to be fun for 90% of gamers. Like to really have it accurate, like that's not going to be fun. And that's the whole thing. So I give a lot of liberties. I do the same thing with movies. And I know some people get upset with that sometimes about how much I'll pass on certain historical inaccuracies. But I think the most important goal of like historical video games and films is not to just learn all this stuff from it and make sure, again, it's 100% accurate, but as a starting point into wanting to learn more about it later, to get you interested in it. And you get it hooked by emphasizing the most interesting parts of it, not the minutia. So these need to be seen as, again, the first step towards learning about subjects, not the final step. That's my thought. Do you guys agree with that? Games and movies, I feel the same way.
No, Japanese resistance was expected at Peleliu, just not nearly to the scale that it actually was. This M1911 not only has 8 rounds in its mag when it should only have 7, but it also has the Series 80 frame, which was not introduced until the 1980s. It goes without saying that the ray gun...
I'm actually learning a ton of this. I know a lot of you guys are way more specific on like the actual military equipment and things. So yeah, I'm actually learning a lot with this.
Obviously did not exist, but the story behind this is quite interesting. During the development of this mission, a Treyarch developer named Jesse Schneider snuck this Easter egg in without informing his supervisors. So when the player base eventually discovered it, Treyarch were furious at Jesse and actually very almost fired him for adding it, which kind of just goes to show just how much the COD developers used to care about portraying history in a faithful and non-cartoonish way.
No. I think it's more just about insubordination than anything, okay? The dude's got the ray gun here. How concerned are they about the historical stuff? And maybe that came out with that must have come with the Easter egg or whatever, but that stuff's fun. It's fun. I don't think Call of Duty, Activision, Treyarch and stuff, whoever's developing the storylines, I do think they've gotten maybe a little bit away from the roots of really trying to make it more accurate. But even you go back to the original Call of Duty and they were never that game. I don't think they ever were. They were still about, I want a fun game regardless.
Throughout the levels on Peleliu Island, the Japanese soldiers perform constant bonsai charges at us. However, this is incorrect, as in actuality, the commander of the Japanese forces on Peleliu Island, Sadue Inoue, opposed bonsai charges and forbid his soldiers from using such tactics.
Yeah, I kind of consider bonsai attacks basically like the army version of kamikaze, and you did see that more and more as the war went on, when they were in desperation mode in Japan in those last months, and they're just trying to do anything to, I don't know if it's to have leverage or whatever, or again just adherence to like Bushido code, and it's like you don't surrender, you die, and killing the enemy, you do whatever it takes to get there.
The Type 92 machine guns do not have any ammunition feeding into them, yet they still somehow fire and even apparently have unlimited ammo. Here we see large amounts of USB 17.
I will always forget. Okay, the unlimited ammo thing, I'll get that. That's like every shooty game, but like, again, it comes out to, to have fun. I would rather have that happen than have it way too few rounds. Because that happens in games too, and that becomes frustrating. And it just makes it not fun. I know, we all know ammo is not infinite. It's about being fun. All right, shooting down planes with your Tommy.
In bombers. However, by 1944, this type of aircraft was almost entirely phased out in the Pacific theater and replaced with the more capable B-24s. Here we use an M7 grenade launcher on our M1 Garand. However, the NK2 grenades we fire are incorrectly fitted with the M1A1 adapters when they should be the M1 adapters. The game depicts...
By the way, I do need to plug something. If you are really into the military tech stuff, check out the episode of History Showdown, my history game show, with Fat Electrician, Habitual Line Crosser, and Chris Cappy from Task and Purpose, because a lot of the trivia categories they did is because they're all vets and really know their tech was tech, like different tanks and planes and that. And those guys were super fun. Check out that episode. And if you're watching this, you might know those guys already, but that was a really fun show. And we got to get pretty geeky with the tech. And I learned a lot from those guys.
Multiple waves of Japanese tanks. However, in reality, there was only one tank-supported counterattack that launched when the Marines first reached the airfield. And it was during this counterattack that the tanks managed to penetrate the Marines' lines to almost reach the beachhead, which is a detail missing from this level. The mission shows the Japanese forces using Type 97 medium tanks. However, in reality, Type 95 light tanks were used at Peleliu. And the game shows the Japanese lightly armoured and short 57mm barreled Type 97 tanks absolutely destroying the much more heavily armoured and longer 75mm barreled M4 Shermans.
Well, that's not going to be fun if it's just like fully equal like that. You want to be empowered. You want to be empowered in games. But yeah, now I'm noticing again, the biggest things he's talking about with inaccuracies is mostly anachronisms, things that are out of place for their time.
Also, these tanks are fighting way too close to each other. Actual tank engagements occurred at a much larger distance of 500 meters or so.
I mean, you can do that if you want.
Here we fire Japanese Type 96 25mm AT/AA guns in triple mountings, which not only somehow have unlimited ammo, but are also solely operated by our character, despite the fact that these weapons typically required a 9-man crew to aim, load, and operate. The airfield at Peleliu was captured by the...
I mean, I guess you just want some NPC that you wouldn't even notice. But I guess that could be a cool thing where you have to, like, you know, in a mission, like, hey, we got to get this many guys alive to the nest. And maybe, you know, you have to also protect, like, your crew. And if you don't have enough of them survive, maybe you know, can't use that, the artillery, you know, that kind of stuff. But then you're also, you are changing the type of game. Now, I know there's a lot of games that you all like, I'm sure already commenting, that are more realistic. And I think that's for a certain type of gamer as well. But again, kind of Call of Duty is not for that. And maybe, again, you have more fun with things that are more slower paced or realistic. It's just kind of the different audiences, don't you think? Because, you know, for a lot of people, there's those very casual gamers, you know, the guys that pretty much their gaming collection is like Call of Duty and Madden. You know what I mean? That there's like a whole group of that. So, yeah.
Marine Regiment on September 16th. However, the game depicts us taking the airfield while in the 1st Marine Regiment on September 15th. Apparently, Turkey is still holding out strong against Germany. Must just be a coincidence that we can't find anything about the Great Battle of Istanbul in our history books.
Yeah. You know, that whole region, well, I guess east of there and in the Middle East in general, a lot more quiet than World War I, actually.
This cutscene shows footage of General Heinz Guderian, the German leader of the 2nd Panzer Army in its advancement towards Moscow during Operation Barbarossa. However, it misrefers to him as General Heinrich Amsel, who is a completely fictional character exclusive to this game.
Yeah.
The heavy bombers used in Stalingrad were the HE-111s and the Jukas 88s. However, here we see an incredibly unrealistic and downright ridiculous amount of Luftwaffe FW-200 bombers in the sky.
I remember this scene, though. This was so cool, seeing the planes coming in. I do remember. It's been years since I've played that. Why haven't they done a remaster, like a full remaster? I'm sure you could probably download on Steam a bunch of the mods and things like that. But like, you know, an actual remaster like they've done of other Call of Duty games. Call of Duty World at War was also awesome too, and I loved it because it's when they introduced the zombie modes, and some of my favorite maps still come from that, like Verrucht, which was the second. I think it was like the first DLC map. And also introduced the sodas and things. I still love that one. That's still one of my favorites. That's been remastered.
unrealistic and downright ridiculous.
Pretty much all the maps have been remastered.
FW-200 bombers in disguise of this mission. Only 276 of these aircraft were ever made, and they were used as marine patrol planes, not bombers at Stalingrad. All of the Red Army soldiers, including Sergeant Reznov, should be wearing the M35 uniform, but are instead wearing the M43 uniform with the stand collar and shoulder boards. However, this uniform was not introduced until after the Battle of Stalingrad in 1943. Reznov has a beard,
so detailed with the
since the
dates
only
of
facial hair
clothes.
permitted in the Red Army at the time was mustaches for officers only. The PU scope on this Mauser Nugant is incorrect. General,
if you want an accurate game, though, you're not going to want to use the Mosin Nagant the Mosin Nagant, because it was like pretty crappy gun. It was jam, and it was bad. It's historical, but you could mass produce them for cheap. So there you go. That's what you'd not want.
So, as
accurate
mentioned, is a fictional character, and he is wearing a completely fictional uniform too. He should be wearing the one shown on screen now.
The M43 field cap that the German soldiers are wearing never existed during the first stage of the Battle of Stalingrad.
Right. He said
The Wehrmacht
that.
soldiers are all incorrectly wearing Waffen-SS belt buckles.
Many of them can also be seen having the insignia of the national tricolours of the German Empire on their helmets. This should not be the case, as German High Command mandated against the use of this helmet insignia in 1940. Literally every one of the German soldiers all have the insignia of the lowest rank of private. The turret skirts and armor configuration of...
What's wrong with that? That's what they do. They throw the grunts out there. All right, you're an SS. You gotta go earn that by going out in the crap front of Stalingrad.
This tank indicate that it is a Panzer IV Auf H without the side skirts. This is anachronistic, as this variant of Panzer would not be produced until a year later in 1943. Also, this is a wreck of a Tiger II tank which did not enter production until 1944. After investigation, we can see that this German sniper is actually just a regular private using a Kart 98K without a scope. This means that there should not be a scope glint, and also means that all those times that this fella has instantly killed us while playing this mission in Veteran, he has technically been doing it while 180 no scoping.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, are you even supposed to be in this room? I forget this part of the mission. Like, were you ever supposed to do that? They're going to want to reduce their assets and things visually. So are you just supposed to see the viewpoint again of the player outside, and then the impression that they have a scope and all that? And obviously it wouldn't be as bright in the reflection there that they showed there, and the sniper stuff like this, again, way more slow paced. That's probably one of the things. I don't know if you can tell me if you would like it, but a truly accurate sniper game would probably be incredibly boring for 99% of people. How little they moved and all that, like, it would probably get really old and boring. But I don't know, maybe you're like wired that way.
Us.
Nice scope! Nice!
German soldiers using American M2 flamethrowers on the Eastern Front. I mean, did they even think before adding this? These Soviet soldiers are wielding SMGs but have rifle ammo pouches. This male Red Army soldier has the Russian
gun. I think the whole Papasha, that's how I like the PPSH or whatever. It's a cool gun. It's a fun gun to play with in the game because it is so fast. But that was another a gun that was notoriously jamming. But I always just think it looks cool, and it's really fun to use. It's a really good gun in the game.
Name Fedorova, which is a feminine form of the regular Fedorov. Here we can find and use a PTRS-41.
Hey, the Soviets used women on the front lines. We actually talked about that in class today. So basically, the communist states, China and the Soviet Union, did put women on the front line. So maybe, what are we assuming too much here?
As a sniper, and even fired from the shoulder while standing. However, the PTRS-41 is not a sniper rifle. It is a 2-meter long, 20 kg anti-tank rifle. There is absolutely no way that our character would be able to lift and use the weapon like shown in the game. Also, the PTRS-41 would never have a scope attached to it, because if the weapon was fired while your eye was pressed up against the scope, the immense recoil of the weapon would force the scope to dig right back into your eyeball.
Oh yeah, just explode your head. Yeah, this is a weird choice because you have so many other options.
Norway did not become free from occupation until Germany's surrender in 1945. But according to this map, Norway must have had some sort of civil war and won, since it apparently isn't under German control anymore in
You know what though? Norwegian viewers of mine, you are not going to complain about this because, the common thing you'll hear with Norwegians is, that Norway never actually surrendered. So like, did they actually get occupied? I don't know. And I don't know what the Call of Duty team was thinking about that. Maybe they just, again, didn't care about putting Norway in there. But yeah, they never technically surrendered, right?
1941. Here it shows the Battle of Moscow in 1941, but portrays the Red Army soldiers again wearing the anachronistic M43 uniforms, while also being accompanied by T-34-85 tanks, which were not produced until 1944. And the German Wehrmacht forces are depicted wearing late-war SS camo uniforms alongside the aforementioned Panzer IV Alpage
cool.
tanks introduced in 1943. This mission's description states, break through the German defenses in the town of Seelow. But when we look at the actual battle maps of the Battle of Seelow Heights, we can see that the 3rd Shock Army, which is the field army our characters are in, never directly attacked into the town of Seelow.
Yeah, some of those are kind of interesting because you're going to look a little bit into it. And if you're going to bring up the actual names of units, that is something you can, there's no reason not to do it right. Because you obviously did the work of finding out like what the numbers of units were. Why not just make sure it's the right one? Like, I don't think that would add any more difficulty, right?
Them instead advancing more northernly. Our Soviet character, Dmitry Petrenko, has the lowest rank of private in 1942 during the Battle of Stalingrad. Then, in 1945, he still has the rank of private, meaning that he somehow did not once receive a single promotion throughout the entire 3-year period of fighting in the Red Army.
He sucked.
Why are these German soldiers keeping our character alive? He is, as just mentioned, merely a private, and they killed the other Red Army soldiers in the house, and even when we reach for a gun, all we get in retaliation is a kick from this fella.
Dmitri!
This is the stuff I don't care, though. I don't care about that.
Once again, you cheat.
I don't care about that.
How has Dmitry and Reznov made it this far while keeping the same rank? Because they not only somehow survived this, and this.
Yeah, the dude should have multiple medals of honor. What's the Soviet version called? I forgot.
Through the entire Battle of Stalingrad, which is extremely unlikely considering factors such as how soldiers fighting in Stalingrad had an estimated lifespan of a mere 24 hours.
Again, make for a boring
game. The hammer and sickle on
game.
all the Red Army soldiers' hats are backwards.
Okay, we can't have that. All right, you will respect the hammer and sickle. How dare you?
The hammer and sickle on all the Red Army soldiers' hats are backwards.
I can't deal with this. I feel like I should just end the video. Where's my copy of this game? It's going in the garbage. How dare you?
Reznov is wearing an Ushanka hat and a big mad woolen trench coat, despite him operating in the hot spring sun of Germany. All the tin cans in the game are anachronistic,
It'll be cold in the
since
spring.
they feature a riveted aluminium design and have pull tabs, which were not introduced until the 1960s.
Oh my God. We are now analyzing the tops of cans in the background. Okay. This is now getting like creepy, obsessive levels at this point. Whoa.
Here we see a signpost for Vendy, which is straight up just a fictional town, and also Zug Station, which is located 900 kilometers away in Switzerland. Here we use an MG42, however our character holds it by the barrel, risking getting burnt from the heat. And we also fired a machine gun from the hip and
also, did you see? Let me try to pause it on the right, like right thing if I can.
Risking getting burnt from the heat. And we also fired...
Okay. Also, the fact that his arm is actually going through. Let's see if I can get a good paused like clip here. Okay, we're pretty close. His arm is also going through. I can't believe you didn't say that. Actually going through the canister, running through the ammo there. Why you say that? That wouldn't work. His arm is going through it.
Fired a machine gun from the hip and shoulder, which would be very difficult and downright impossible for the average person.
That's fine.
Due to its weight and recoil.
Makes it more fun.
It also has a 50-round magazine on it, which somehow holds 150 rounds in the game.
Yeah, that would need
Throughout
to be
this entire campaign, we see that the only rocket launcher being used by the Germans is the Panzerschreck. However, in reality, the Panzerfaust was a much more widespread and commonly used German rocket launcher.
Yeah, you can't accuse it for omissions. Okay, if it's getting it wrong, then so be it. But
it is nowhere to be seen anywhere in game. Nearly all the Soviet infantrymen are wearing stars on their belts, despite the fact that this type of belt buckle was only worn by commissioners. Many of the Japanese soldiers have the M sign chest mark, but this kind of insignia shouldn't appear on the uniform anymore since 1940. The M2 flamethrower could fire consistently for 7 seconds before running out of fuel. However, in the game, we fire the flamethrower for 4 seconds before it then magically refuels itself.
Well, okay. That's more fun. You don't want to just end it. Plus, maybe it did refuel itself.
A very interesting detail in this game is that when firing at the Japanese soldiers with the flamethrower, some of them will say apai or panas, which is Indonesian for fire and hot respectively. This is actually a historical depiction of how the Imperial Japanese Army forcefully conscripted native Indonesians into Hanai units during their occupation of the Dutch East Indies.
They're making their last stand in the jungles and caves that surround the heavy guns to the point.
Okay.
We take them, and we take Peleliu.
No. The point, as it was referred to, was a 30-foot high coral ridge at the beaches of Peleliu Island that the Japanese used to engage the US forces from. It was taken by the Marines on the first few days of battle, and most certainly was not some big mountain or some extremely important position like the game is trying to tell us. Here we fire the M1919A6 Browning machine gun from the hip and shoulder, which was actually possible. In the game we hold the gun by the barrel, which is covered with a wet towel. This was indeed a practice performed by Marines to prevent burning from the barrel. However, the problem is that the...
See, I would actually stop there and say that is really cool of a thing. A little addition for something like that, I think should be praised, but let's hear his criticism of it.
Heat from the barrel would dry the towel after about 50 shots of automatic fire, which meant that the dry towel would then set on fire if you were to continue shooting the gun like we do in the game.
I actually think that's a cool addition.
Soldiers can be seen using the Type 100. However, this SMG was rare, with only about 7,500 of them being produced throughout the entire war, meaning that we should not see them nearly as commonly as we do in the game.
Infantrymen of Dmitry and Reznov somehow become trained and highly skilled tank operators capable of single-handedly destroying waves of Panthers and King Tigers in an instant.
That's why he's the GOAT, man. That's why he's the GOAT. Respect Reznov, baby. Yeah, let's go.
The Battle of Silo Heights did not end until the German defensive line was broken on April 19, 1945. However, the game here depicts the battle ending 3 days too early on April 16.
Oh no!
Also, the last mission set in Silo Heights, where Reznov saves us, took place 2 days after this level on April 18th.
No!
So what the hell happened? Did the Germans retreat, capture Dmitry from the train, and then return to Silo Heights with him? None of these dates make sense.
Maybe it did happen. They just didn't say it, all right? There was a retreat, and then it went over there. Yeah, whoever did the dates, I wonder if that guy got fired.
It is a true fact that Soviet artillery began shelling Berlin on Hitler's 56th birthday of April 20th, 1945.
420.
However, the game here shows it being April 23rd, so it is 3 days off.
430 is his death day.
Every one of the Soviet tanks in this level all somehow have American M1919 machine guns mounted on them. We can see the Reichstag building at the end.
It's because they wanted to be realistic in the fact that those machine guns were way better. They were like, I don't care if it's on the wrong person. We just want to make sure they're good.
Of this mission. However, this would be impossible since we are a part of the 3rd Shock Army fighting in the very north of Pankow, Berlin, located very far from the center of the city where the Reichstag is.
Wrong people in the wrong place, huh? You're speaking English. Speak Russian or German because you're in Berlin. I was going to say, abandon. I mean, we'll see what that means. One thing you didn't want to do is surrender to become a POW in one of these Soviet camps. They were insanely bad. You might as well just...
Citizens of Berlin? Yeah, where are they? Because in reality, there was around 3 million civilians trapped in the city during the battle. And also, shouldn't he be saying this message in German if it is meant for the German citizens?
No, it's meant for the viewer, but yeah. Well, okay, this is well before they do the no Russian mission later on in Call of Duty, because I don't think they wanted a bunch of civilians running around. And if it was, I guess you wanted to be historically accurate, the Soviets would have gunned them all down, which is not a line they were willing to cross at this time in the Call of Duty lore. Okay, you got to wait till the no Russian mission later.
The term Molotov cocktail was created by Finnish soldiers during the Winter War to mock the Soviet Foreign Minister Václav Molotov. So unless Reznov is secretly an enemy of the Soviet state, then he shouldn't be referring to them as Molotovs. Okay. Also, the lighter or Soviet character uses to ignite the Molotovs appears to somehow be an American 1930s pre-war Zippo lighter.
Zippo.
The signs for the subway U-Bahn stations in this level are all over the place. It shows signs that indicate that stations such as Horst-Wessel-Platz, Friedrichstraße, Adolf Hitler-Platz, and Frankfurter Alley 113 are all in the same area, when in reality they are all far away from each other. The U-Bahn tunnels were indeed purposely flooded, presumably by the SS, during the Battle of Berlin to slow the Soviet advance. However, the game depicts this happening on April 24th, when in reality the tunnels were not flooded until the 2nd of May. Combat used black...
The 2nd of May? They did it that late after Hitler died? Now, they don't surrender till, May 8th, right? So, I mean, they tried to keep fighting on, but that seems like a lot of work for them to do. And they did it that late. That's interesting. Should have done that earlier, right?
Cat PYB Catalinas were not flooded until the 2nd of May. Combat used Black Cat PYB Catalinas did not have a twin 20mm nose cannon, and even if they wanted to add one, they would have to remove the front 30 caliber machine guns for it. The game
that is interesting that they did that, I guess, inaccurately, especially if they actually went to the work of labeling it that way. Yeah, that's kind of weird.
PYB Catalinas did not have a twin 20mm nose cannon, and even if they wanted to add one, they would have to remove the front 30 caliber machine guns for it. The game tells us that we are part of Black Cat Squadron VPB-54, but this Pacific Patrol Bombing Squadron would soon be completely disestablished, with the squadron's personnel having already returned to the US and assigned to other squadrons a full month before the events of this mission. Here we destroy and sink 3 Japanese vessels using only 20mm cannon and 30 caliber fire, which would be near impossible.
Yeah, that would just ting, 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 ting. You got to get the bombers up in here, though. I mean, I guess you could take down some of the crew, right? I don't know. Maybe, I mean, all you got to do is shoot a red barrel. That's one thing I've learned about games. That's accurate.
It would be much more realistic if we used bombs or torpedoes to sink the enemy ships, which the Black Cats were actually armed with. However, they are missing in the game. There is no way that our Catalina would be able to successfully fight off and survive against this many Japanese Zero fighters.
That's right, more fun.
Our aircraft just took a load of belly hits from the AA guns on the Japanese vessels, and then also received heavy fire from the enemy fighters.
It makes it more fun,
still land in the water covered in bullet holes. You may guess why they would never do this in real life. All evidence points towards the battle being portrayed in this mission being part of Operation Kikusi, which did not launch until April 6, 1945, 3 days after the date shown in the game. Some of the US vessels depicted in this mission...
By the way, are you all that are watching this, are you also fact-checking the fact-checker? Like, is he also accurate? Or are we just taking it for their word?
Such as the USS Halford, USS Charette, and USS Gatling were not involved or even in the area of the battle, and some of the ships, such as the USS Balanon,
they just wanted to find some names of ships.
Once again, or anachronistic, modern-day US carriers and battleships return. I mean, come on, Treyarch, this is some Vanguard-level nonsense.
Well, look how quick that went by. They weren't even, like, fully rendered, but yeah, I mean, yeah, I get it. There's no reason not to. Just use the silhouettes, the not well-rendered versions that actually existed in 40s.
This level begins with us capturing Wanna Ridge on May 14th. However, in reality, it took several days of fighting for US Marines to conquer this ridge from the 12th to the 19th of May.
Yeah, it took forever to conquer.
We start this mission
Iwo
carrying
Jima,
both
Okinawa.
an M2 flamethrower and
Months.
M1919A6 with over 400 bullets, along with fragmentation grenades, smoke grenades, and satchel charges, which when added together is over 70 kgs or 150 pounds of weight.
Yeah.
An impossible heaviness to carry and work with in such an operation like this.
That's something for every mission there. The amount of gear, I feel like we totally underestimate that these guys had to carry, 50 pounds of just like, and then trudging around like that. But again, another thing that would really be it wouldn't make the game more fun. I don't think. Again, if you're that 1% that would probably like that, you be you.
Most of the land and vegetation on Okinawa was completely charred up and destroyed as a result of weeks of constant harsh shelling, bombing, and fighting. Yet we see much of the vegetation still intact in the game.
Yeah, but that stuff, they had to clear these areas. You can't go in there like this right now at this level at the beginning, right? Because they're still talking, it's the early days here, that you wouldn't be able to do that. You can't, you send the flamethrowers and stuff when you have area pretty much in control. That's not like your front line there. Those guys would get totally just wrecked. So I actually think this is not an inaccuracy that way. But they do torch everything later because what they're trying to do is find all the different traps, all the little tunnels and things that the Japanese soldiers would ambush you from. But you have to have that area pretty well locked down before you can start sending in the flamethrowers and the flame tanks and stuff.
The US Marine Corps men, such as the one seen here, should not be wearing any Red Cross insignia on their uniforms, as they are advised not to, due to the fact that it only made them stand out and become easier targets for the Japanese soldiers on Okinawa who had little care for the rules of engagement.
Right.
The start of this cutscene not only shows US Marines heading to the north of the island when they should be instead heading towards the Japanese forces in the south, but also shows them walking towards the Kakazu Ridge, which had already been captured a month before the engagement at Wanna Ridge. The 1,000-yard stare was actually known during World War II as the 2,000-yard stare.
Oh, was it? I did not know. I've heard of 1,000. Why use 2,000? 1,000 just seems like a better number. That's when you basically get like shell-shocked and you freeze up and it looks like you're just gazing so far away. Like your brain is not functioning. It's just it's so much mental stress. Your brain is blasted a fuse.
The last time we're going to have to put our lives on the line. This is the enemy's last stand. When we take Shuri Castle, we go home, all of us.
What? No. Pretty much the entirety of this level is complete fiction. Shuri Castle was not the last stand of the Japanese forces on Okinawa. In late May, as the US forces fought their way towards the Shuri line, pretty much all of the Japanese soldiers evacuated the castle. So when the US forces arrived, they were met with very little resistance.
Here's the thing though, ideas like that have been common in military history, where it's like, hey, this battle is, it could be the last one. It's going to be the last one. This helps keep the morale up. Although when it's not the last one, then you actually start to distrust your leaders. And that was something, especially saw that in World War I, because they were constantly being like, hey, this is the last battle. This is the last thing we need to take. But it is a tactic because you never know, like, really, if something's going to be the last conflict. But it kind of, I guess, helps with motivation. But again, you can only do that so long before you get Boy Who Cried Wolf and you just start respecting the people that are giving orders and making these type of promises.
Meaning no massive bonsai charges, no mortar crews, no
this was the time they did that,
bombings, and no massive scale last stand defense like we see in the game.
Right. There it is. Main force pulled back to the North Ridge.
Wrong again. By this time, the Japanese forces had retreated to the south of the island, not the north. Shuri Castle had been shelled by the US Navy for 3 consecutive days prior to the arrival of the US ground forces, resulting in it getting completely devastated and lighting ablaze. However, the buildings in this game are all almost completely intact. Also, the colour surrounding area and the castle itself are completely anachronistic, as they seem to be based on the 1992 reconstruction of the castle. The mortar shells we captured from the Japanese have American designations on them. Here we fire an M1 carbine, however the game incorrectly refers to it as an M1A1 carbine, meaning it would have a folding stock, which is not the case here.
Right.
You will be okay.
That is one thing I know people get very upset about, justifiably, is like there's no reason to not have the right designations and right labels, I guess, on some of the weapons, especially for that being such a thing that people are very much obsessed with. They know a lot about it, you know?
Hear me? They flooded their own metro in an effort to kill us, Dimitri.
So
But they did that
Reznov is
later.
only now dragging us out of the U-Bahn tunnels? Because the game depicted it getting flooded on April 24th. So was Dimitri just stuck drowning in the tunnels for 6 days straight?
Yes.
Also, there
Yes.
was no U-Bahn station in this sector of Berlin.
Which do you think will lead us home? Writing about this war or fighting it?
Hey,
No one
historians,
will ever read
man, we need it.
this. Dimitri.
I appreciate that guy writing it down.
Someone should read this.
All historians worldwide just let out a sigh of relief. Thank you, Reznov, for preserving this vital piece
Yes.
of primary source historical evidence. The surrounding
Yeah,
area of the
it's
Reichstag
important.
is completely off. Many iconic
Of
landmarks
course.
such as the Kroll Opera House and the Tiergarten Park are missing. Oh, what? This
Lower
is just
scale.
ridiculous!
No,
I
it's
do y'all
fun.
remember reading about how the final ragtag group of German
This is
soldiers
what's fun,
casually
though.
had 47 million grenades each?
Yeah.
Throughout this campaign, we see the Germans
I
using
love it.
FG-42s. However, this weapon was produced in very limited numbers and was designed for and used by German Luftwaffe paratroopers, not Wehrmacht soldiers. Hitler died on April 30th, not the 1st of May.
Yeah, that's such an easy one. I mean, well, it did say Hitler, I guess, died then. It's just dead. He was technically dead on May 1st. He has been dead for, 48 hours, but like, yeah.
Fire the Panzerschreck!
That is not a Panzerschreck, it is an M191 bazooka. Also, seeing the Red Army using American bazookas,
It's also going
although
through his
not
face.
completely impossible due to the land lease, it would still be incredibly unlikely as the US only sent about 3,000 of them, and the Soviets were discouraged from using them due to lack of rockets and them finding more success with their own anti-tank weapons.
Oh, interesting. I don't know that. I mean, the U.S. sent such an insane amount of stuff to Lend-Lease, but yeah, I guess the anti-tank stuff, interesting. And they like the Soviet versions better, huh?
The black uniforms that the SS soldiers are wearing in this level were permanently phased out in 1942.
They look
Here we see the main
greenish.
hall of the Reichstag being defended fiercely. However, in reality, German forces in the building had retreated back to the basement and cellars during the
Yeah.
Soviet assault.
But that's such a like cooler setting to have it there in the assembly area.
Also, the main hall itself had been completely destroyed by a fire that occurred in 1933, meaning the hall should not be nearly as intact and built up as shown in the game.
That was such an important historical event to have that because von Hindenburg's gonna be dead, and they're going to basically be able to get executive powers to Hitler in a state of emergency, basically saying it was a terror attack, and because of that, executive powers should go to the chancellor.
Again, German soldiers using American M2 flamethrowers, and also one bullet would not be able to completely explode the whole thing like we do in the game here.
Yes,
The
it
SS
could.
officers should have the Totenkopf skull on their hats. The Soviet national anthem that plays here
Should be you.
is the post-war 1977 edition when it should be the 1945 edition. The Soviet flag was raised atop of the Reichstag on the night of April 30th, 1945,
Yeah.
not at daytime.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, well, that was staged. That one was staged. Sorry, earlier I think I said that with von Hindenburg, he died in 34. Actually, that's my fault. My fault on that one. But still, with the story of the Reichstag given executive powers, that was pretty nuts. Yep, look into the whole like how Hitler got into power. That was a major part of it.
This
Okay.
And most importantly, this end credit message of dedicated to the veterans of World War II who sacrificed their lives for the preservation of liberty are exactly why Call of Duty World at War, although having a total of 122 historical inaccuracies, is still beloved by history enjoyers.
Should be.
Through it all, it always managed to stay historically authentic,
It's
portrayed
fun.
World War II in the truly dark and brutal conflict that it was, and most significantly stayed utterly respectful to the people and events it was depicting, which is sadly a lot more that can be said about the newer COD titles. And say, if you do wish to see a truly laughable and downright insulting butchering of history, then click on this video where we list the historical inaccuracies in Call of Duty Vanguard.
Vanguard was wild. All right, final thoughts. All right, I think you got my overall tone about it. There are a lot of things I'm like, who cares? It's about making it fun. But there are some things that were just mostly like inexplicable. Like, why would you not do this right or wrong thing? It wouldn't have taken any like less time or more time, I should say, to actually get it more accurate. That's the stuff that I guess becomes kind of weird. But again, I'll reiterate kind of my whole idea about historical accuracy in games and in films, which is it's more important that it interests people in the topic than actually it's like full 100% accuracy. Now, if it's completely misleading and changing the actual history and like how the events played out, like the effects, I think that's way more important, the effects and the actual process, then that's where we got to draw the line with some of this stuff. Or at least you call it it is inspired by history, or it's like an alternate history or something like this. So there's a lot of things I'm going to pass on that, but maybe this is just teacher brain. But again, if it gets people interested in something, I love that kind of thing. Another example outside of like World War II games is, say, like the Assassin's Creed series. Now, those are fictional events and it's incredibly fictional, but I know so many students, of mine that get interested in it when we talk about like the Renaissance or something like that. And then they can refer to something back in the game and maybe I can like correct something and they find that interesting. But like as a way to get into a topic, I think that is so important. So we can't be, proclaiming that these things are the teaching tools and the be all and end all of teaching things, because that's kind of lazy. We should actually be encouraging people to go again deeper once they get hooked on these topics. And that's what I think about this. So let me know what you think about kind of these inaccuracies and your overall ideas about where, if ever, do you draw the line when it comes to inaccuracies in history and media. Let me know down below. All right, we'll see y'all next time.